We go. Hello, everyone from the Sunshine State. This is my presentation on the prototype design pattern. Just an overview of what I'm going to talk about. Basically going to follow what we discussed in class. The intent, the applicability, the structure, the participants, collaboration, advantages, pitfalls and criticisms, and of course the handy dandy demo. The intent of the prototype is to create new objects by cloning a prototypical instance. Applicability, basically you want to use this type of design pattern whenever a system has to be independent of its product creation, composition, all that kind of good stuff. Class instantiation should be determined at runtime. If you want to avoid, you want to avoid the factory class hierarchy paralleling product class hierarchy. And class instances only have a few different combinations. This is the UML for the prototype design pattern. So basically we have a client that calls the interface prototype, which is implemented with different prototypes, concrete prototype. The main thing for a prototype is it has to have the clone function implemented. The participants are basically the prototype interface, the concrete prototype which implements that interface, and then the client that creates a new object by asking a concrete prototype to clone itself. The main, I guess only collaboration is when the client asks the prototype to clone itself. The main advantages are you can hide the concrete product classes, application-specific classes. Excuse me. You can add and remove products at runtime. You can specify new objects with varying values and or structure. It reduces subclassing, and it configures an application with classes dynamically. The only pitfall in my reading was that each subclass has to implement the clone method. And the criticisms I've read are it's very similar to other design patterns such as the abstract factory and builder. And it's also very similar to a class copy constructor. Here are the references. And for my demo, I used an example of an MMORPG. The last one that I played in my undergrad days was the World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. There were, I believe, 10 classes at that time. And each class had its own set of base stats, like stamina, strength, agility, all that kind of good stuff. There are 3 basic types of class. There's tank, healer, and damage or DPS. And the classes have some sort of resource bar, be it mana, energy, rage, all that kind of stuff. The type of armor that the class is allowed to wear, and the list goes on. You can get the types of weapons they're allowed to use. I mean, it can really go far. And here is the UML for my demo. So here we have the driver, which is the client, and this is the interface. These are all the variables that all classes have. Here's the clone that's required. And these are all the utility functions that all classes use. And just so everyone is clear, these two are enumerations that have the type of armor available and the type of resource bar available. And without further ado, we'll go to the demo. So this is the driver class. Here's where I'm creating an array list to store all the prototypes created. And scroll here. Here's where I'm actually creating the prototypes. So here's the abstract class and then the concrete class. And then here I'm basically going through and spitting out all the information for each prototype. So if I run this, so excuse me, the warrior class has these base stats. They can't heal, they can tank, and they can use a shield. The type of armor they're allowed to use is plate, and the resource bar is rage. And I'm not going to go through all these. You're welcome to read through. This is just showing the different types and how they vary from one another. Now to this back down. To demonstrate the cloning aspect of this, we'll go ahead and comment this out. So what this is doing is we're cloning the warrior and then we're modifying the stamina. And what this is showing is just the the prototype, and then the cloned. So I'll go ahead and run this again. Yes, save all. Okay, so here is the prototype. The stats haven't changed. And then this is the clone after we modified stamina. And as you can see, the stamina is different between the two. And just from tinkering, my class here, for the warrior class, here is the clone function. So this is key here because this is returning a clone of this object. If we would simply return this object, it's going to return a reference of this object. So after making that change, when I go back over here and rerun it, I haven't changed anything in the client. And you'll see that after changing the stamina, it changed the prototype as well. So we can't just return a reference. Here is the interface class, MMO player. A lot of the functions are in this class because all the classes are going to use them. And this is just my output function. Excuse me. And as you saw from my UML, I have 10 subclasses that implement the clone. And I know since Wrath of the Lich King, they've added at least 1 or 2 different classes. So we would just add them on up here and tie them in. So that's my presentation on Prototype. Thanks for watching.